This is the business of sports.
Sports are the greatest unscripted show on earth.
The next generation of players who really grew up with tech and believe in tech.
Your face is your ticket. Your face is your wallet. Your face is your access to a club.
These are such iconic and important buildings for businesses, for fans.
COVID was one of the best things that ever happened to golf.
The NFL is a bulletproof business.
Racing's unique because there is absolutely no reason why we can't compete with the guys.
Come on, is pro pickleball real? Are people really going to tune into this?
If you're playing Moneyball with a huge bag of money, you're going to be really, really good.
Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with Vanessa Perdomo. Damian Sassower is off this week. Up next on the show, we are all in on basketball. We talk with super agent Rich Paul. We'll talk with him about his latest project, Masterclass.
You know, most kids dream of getting to the NBA. Most kids don't dream of getting to the NBA and then being successful in the NBA and having a consistent work habit in the NBA and understanding how to be a professional in everything I do while being in the NBA.
And the WNBA announced it's adding teams soon. We'll talk through the league's growth on the way as well. And that is all on the way on Bloomberg Business of Sports. But first, with all this talk on the hardwood, we're going to start in the sneaker world, where we've gotten a lot of headlines lately. Nike delivered an upbeat forecast lately, which could suggest the CEO Elliott Hill's plans could be working. And NBA top draft choice Cooper Flagg is planning to rock New Balance sneakers, which could be a major boost for that company. To take us through all of this and more, we welcome Bloomberg News senior reporter Kim Bhasin. Hello, old friend of the show. It's Kim Bhasin. How you doing, man?
What's up? So happy to be here, of course,
Man, we got Vanessa here, and you're here, and man, I'm tickled.
It's a great summer day, isn't it?
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Man, you know. We got a lot to talk about. We got Cooper Flagg.
Oh, yeah.
Number one, which was, pretty daggone obvious.
Yeah.
He has turned this already into a lot of ambitions, and he can make a lot of coin out of this, Kim.
Oh, yeah. So before he got drafted, right after he declared that he was going to Duke a while back, he got signed to a shoe endorsement deal, right? And it wasn't Nike. Mm-hmm. It wasn't Jordan. It wasn't Adidas. It was New Balance out of Boston, Massachusetts.
So do you know any reasons behind what was the thrill for him to choose New Balance? What was it? Did they offer him sort of a Michael Jordan Nike deal, you make us cool vibe?
I don't think it's particularly special in terms of how it can be compared to the rest of the deals out there, right? But what seemed to attract Cooper to New Balance was a couple things. One, it's like his hometown-ish brand, right? He grew up near a New Balance factory in Maine. New Balance has been involved in New England sports of all kinds over the decades and decades, right? And there's something I've talked to other athletes about, not Cooper in particular, about being at Nike or Adidas, like one of the big companies, and that is you sometimes get lost in it, right? You're their 10th biggest star or something. At New Balance, he's gonna be their face of men's basketball, and they have Kawhi Leonard as well, but obviously he's nearing the end of his career. Cooper will be their face going forward, assuming he pans out in the way that everyone hopes he will, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. When you're the new kid on the block and you are, I don't want to use the phrase startup because that's wrong about New Balance, but
$7 billion in sales.
Yeah, I was going to say, just a tiny bit. But compared to Nike or Adidas, hey, you can have a guy carve out his own way with your shoe brand to make it identifiable.
And New Balance is closely held, right? They're trying to become the third largest athletic wear company in the world, behind Nike and Adidas. The problem is there's Puma standing in their way here, and Puma has been working on their basketball division also. They have LaMelo Ball, whose shoe does quite well. So New Balance, it requires that strong basketball business to get there, right? Basketball is such an important market for sneakers now, not just on court, but that halo effect to get people to buy your shoes, the lifestyle shoes, and everything else that you wear on the street.
But that's the interesting thing, I think, there, because I feel like when we've talked about it before and you kind of told me, just when we were talking about sneakerheads in general, that sneakerheads have like slowed on like Jordans and things like that in the past like year or two, and that New Balance is pretty popular with like the young kids.
It is. Yeah, a bunch of like collabs over the past few years have really hit. They've gotten a lot cooler, frankly, in the last like 3, 4, 5 years. It's been really fascinating to see, and now you can leverage all of that to get yourself into sports, and then use it the other way around too. Like if they can attract these big athletes to compete on court in their shoes, like that's a big deal, and it's a big deal because they're infringing on like someone's turf, right? This is Nike's spot. They dominate this industry.
Yeah.
I wanna take us into like the past here, like just to show exactly how much Nike has dominated this and how lucky New Balance got, and I guess they're skilled negotiators, right?
Yeah.
How lucky and how well they pulled this off. Like, if you go back, every number 1 overall draft pick, Wemby, Paolo, Cade, Ant is Adidas, sorry.
Adidas, yeah.
Zion, DeAndre Ayton went to Puma. And then the old Philly guys, Markelle Fultz and Ben Simmons also got signed by Nike right before the draft. So like it's been every single year, just they dominate. But here we have New Balance.
But I think it's an interesting thing when you think of those people who are still on top. When you think of those last like 10 years, and Adidas, I mean, he's trying to make it cool, right? I mean, he's doing a really good job, but like Nike is Nike, and they can really use his platform to build still, but.
Yeah, Nike is Nike, and they're waiting for Caitlin Clark right now.
We had to talk about one of the other things I want to talk about really quick as we're talking about New Balance. In your story, you also said that they kind of said they're still going to push to do more in the NIL space, but pointed out that Cooper Flagg wasn't allowed to wear New Balances in college because of their...
He wore Nikes.
Yeah, because of their relation with Duke's relationship, right? So why even get into the space if they can't wear shoes in games?
Yeah, it's tough in college, right? College is its own beast where brands can sign deals with entire universities, and everyone's required to wear those shoes. So maybe we'll see New Balance get into more of that.
Are there contracts up for big schools, do you think?
There's always contracts up. So if they're really looking around, there should be some opportunities available to them. But yeah, Cooper wore Nikes throughout that whole March Madness run. Nike's Nike. There was some drama during that too.
And New Balance
is paying him money.
Yeah.
There was drama during that too because he had like a game winner, and Nike posted something on Twitter that said "powered by the swoosh."
Ooh. And does that actually get into sort of...
Speaking of Nike, they have said that, you know what? We're done losing money. We've hit the bottom. We are going to make money from this point forward. Be positive, Kim. Be positive.
Yeah. They did say that they've declared the bottom, right? Yeah. They're saying that this last quarter is going to be their worst, and it's all going up from here. And investors bought it, right? When they said that, shares jumped like 15%. It was the biggest jump since 2022 in a single day. Like there's enthusiasm now for Nike's turnaround effort because it's been such a difficult past year and a half. There were layoffs. Sales have been slumping this whole time. They've lost traction in the places where like they really shouldn't have, and places where it's hard to get it back, like the running industry, as they pulled back from shelf space at all these different retailers, and then everyone everyone else swooped in and was like, okay, you want to sell us? Cool. That sounds like a great deal. And but Nike's reversing most of those decisions and really refocusing on sports and performance products and things like that.
Yeah, Vanessa, Nike sounds like my kid when he broke my favorite glass. Dad, mistakes were made. Don't get me wrong.
But I tried to glue it back together. And everything's fine now. So are those strategies, is it going to be propelled when, Caitlin Clark's, is she going to be propelling this next quarter of growth for Nike? She just dropped her version of the Kobe's, right? They're not even her own signature shoes, and they still sold out.
And they still immediately, they're not even her own. They use Wemby had one of these, for example, when after he came into the league. It was just one colorway of someone else's shoe that that's branded after you. But this is really it's a good sign for the eventual release of Caitlin Clark's signature shoes, and that's going to be one of the most important shoe releases, in my opinion, for Nike in years. Many years. This is going to be such a big deal for them, and they need to get it right. It's one of the most important things they're going to do in 2025.
And with the WNBA really making their footprints, forgive the pun, they're going to. That was good. That was accident. That was pretty good. But they're going to need a Caitlin Clark, and they're going to need some other WNBA players as well.
And it's been working so far. The WNBA stars with shoes, right? Yeah. The Sabrina 2 is like the second most worn basketball shoe in the NBA on court, which is a huge deal. And then Asia Wilson's shoes have sold out as well since she released them earlier this year. So here comes Caitlin.
And then therefore Paige, right?
And therefore Nike's also signed Paige. They have not announced anything around her yet. We'll just have to.
Right. They have to get through Caitlin Clark first. Obviously, they're not going to downplay that at all. But in terms of looking forward to the future, it seems like it would be bright if you're releasing Caitlin and then Paige. Literally like a year or so after. Oh yeah, it's quite a lineup, and we've yet to see anyone else try to match that vigor in the WNBA thus far.
Our thanks to Kim Bhasin for joining us. Up next, we stick with basketball and turn to the WNBA and the new teams it's planning to add. For Vanessa Perdomo, I'm Michael Barr. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Business of Sports, where we explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with Vanessa Perdomo. Damian Sassower is off this week. The WNBA just announced it's adding 3 new teams in Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia with a massive expansion fee. Here to talk to us about the league's growth and more about the new teams is Bloomberg US sports business reporter and friend of the show, Randall Williams. Randall, welcome to the Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Thank you for having me, as always.
I am my big story that I think about the WNBA. They're going to expand to 18 teams now. That means 3 more teams will be added. That's Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia by the year 2030. That's a great impact for the league.
Yeah, I think so. I think it shows that as something that we've already known in a sense is that basketball, or women's basketball in particular, is continuing to grow. This is something that Commissioner Kathy Engelbert had set her sights on. I believe she wanted 16 teams by 2028. She'll have 30 by 2030. So that's, not 30, 18 by 2030. So that's a good sign. I think it's healthy for the league.
Oh my God, could you imagine if it was 30 already?
Oh, man.
That would be some growth for sure. It's interesting, though, that these 3 teams are all going to be added to existing NBA franchises with ownership groups. Talk to us about that and why, that makes sense for the league and why you think they chose those particular ownership groups.
Yeah, I think from here on out, it's going to be very difficult for any new WNBA franchise that isn't connected to an NBA franchise to get up and running or to win one of these highly competitive bidding processes, because of the fact that, like, when you have an NBA owner in place and they have an arena and they have all this other stuff set up, all they essentially have to do is build a practice facility and be a good owner and, put some promotion behind the team, make people excited about it, and it's up and running. That's not the exact same, say, let's say Kansas City or Nashville, for example, which don't have the exact same things. I'm sure they have arenas downtown, but for the WNBA, if you're looking at it from their point of view, you want experience. You don't want someone to come in and have to learn the ropes and go through learning curves. You want someone who's experienced with this. And that's what we've seen. The last three teams, of course, as you said, are connected to NBA franchises. I believe the last three before that were too. So no surprise there. But if you want the team in Kansas City or Nashville, it's going to be tough.
Portland is separate, though. I mean, they have an NBA team, right? But their ownership group is not
exactly
the Portland Trailblazers ownership group.
Now, I'm going to clarify this with everybody is entitled to their opinion. And I think you all know where I'm going with this. Indiana guard Sophie Cunningham has concerns about the new locations for the three teams, Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia. She said, I don't know how excited people are to be going to Detroit or to the other Ohio city. She made a mistake and said Cincinnati. It's Cleveland. She spoke during practice. She said, you want to listen to your players, adding, where are they going to get excited to play and draw fans? Now, everybody knows that I am a native Detroiter and love the city of Detroit. And, of course, the city of Detroit responded, noting on social media that it has had a previous WNBA team, the Shock. And according to what the city was saying is that it attracted a lot of fan enthusiasm. Now, there's a debate about that until they moved to Tulsa in 2010.
I mean, you took it really personal, Michael, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, because it's like, come on. I understand what you're saying. You're trying to grow the league. You don't. You worried about it going too fast. But at the same time, too, it's like, and you said it, Randall, Detroit has had the experience from 1998 to like 2009. The Shock played in Detroit, Randall.
Yeah, I think that her comments were definitely disrespectful to the franchises. But what I hear from WNBA players who were speaking about expansion yesterday, and not just her, is that they want to be heard by the league. And in this particular instance, I do think that she was a little out of line. I think that what she should have said is that I want the players to be involved in the process. And if that's what you want, I think that's perfectly fine because, the WNBA and the players, the women's, the WNBPA are in the middle of a CBA negotiation. And so often, I mean, if you listen to what the players are saying and how they're negotiating, like they are really stepping up to the plate and saying, like, we understand the business, we know the business, we want to be a part of the business. And Commissioner Engelbert had said previously, as it pertained to media rights, that she would welcome having a player representative at the table. And in the latest media negotiations, that didn't happen. And obviously in expansion, which it shouldn't on the expansion front, I'm not sure that any players have ever been involved on for any league, NFL, NBA, MLB, in bringing a team to a city. Obviously, you can rally, but I just think the players want to be involved a little bit more in the league's business as it's growing.
Do you think that other players in the league feel similarly about the growth being too fast?
Yes, I made some calls yesterday, and there were a number of players who were not fond of this announcement. I had someone tell me, a player tell me that it doesn't feel like the league is as focused on the CBA negotiations as they are on expansion. And I think, like, listen, when I talk with the WNBA, they're not going to negotiate in the public. That's been their stance since the CBA window opened up. I'm sure that'll be their stance in 3 months from now or 4 months from now. However, there are some players who are like, great, the league's growing, but it's in 2030. And these roster spots that will be added, there's going to be a portion of the league that's out of the league by then. There's going to be new players. And really, the players want to make sure that the incoming players are not inheriting issues that they dealt with. So in 5 years' time, Caitlin Clark will be in her 7th season. I'm sure that whoever is the rookie in 5 years doesn't want to be dealing with some of the things that the current rookies are dealing with now.
And again, I want to add, too, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and she is a very good, Cunningham is a very good WNBA player. And I want to go back to what you were saying about the players having more input. I think that is what she was trying to get at.
Right. Yeah, I just think that she didn't name any other cities. Like, if she would have named some destination cities, okay, like, now you're putting your flag in the ground and saying, like, the people, let's say she said Salt Lake City, for example. Now you may get the owners of the Utah Jazz who may say, like, hey, she's right. I want to bid for a team. But that didn't happen. She didn't say, like, oh, Kansas City or Houston or wherever. She just said not these 3 cities. And I don't think that's the right mindset you want to have. I think that there was a better way to say it. And she just could have been a little bit more respectful to the cities, the owners, and the league.
Right. She's having her moment right now, and she's speaking her mind. She's off her Caitlin Clark, friendship, having that moment in spotlight, and she's speaking her mind, which we want the players to be able to speak their mind. Randall, I'm curious for this deal. We talked previously about how the Connecticut Sun are put up for sale, and they might look to move the team, but that doesn't impact these 3 teams, right? One of these new teams isn't going to absorb the Connecticut Sun. Is that right?
Yeah, that's not going to happen. The Sun are still up for sale. They could go to anybody who's interested, and I think the expectation, depending on who's going to be buying and what their plans are, there have been a lot of rumors about, will the Sun stay in Connecticut? Will they move? There's been rumors about people wanting to bring a WNBA team to Boston. Obviously, Boston isn't far from Connecticut, but you have a new owner in the Boston Celtics and Bill Chisholm. He's not connected, or he would not be connected in all likelihood to the WNBA franchise. And it just gets complicated with that city in particular. But I think with the right owner and, the right situation, the Sun will be perfectly fine. I just think you have to find the right buyer.
And I also want to talk about the fee, because each team is paying $250 million each to become a part of the WNBA, according to the word that's out there on the street. It was, back in 2023, about $50 million, and now it's $250 million. My goodness, now that's a lot of money for the league.
Quite.
Yeah, it is. It is. They drove that up in large part because people are watching heavily. I think that another part of this is media deals, and there's just an increased number of eyes. The WNBA was growing before Caitlin Clark got here, but she turned what was like a rising wave into a tidal wave. Now, eventually that tidal wave will reach the shore, and they'll have to figure out what life looks like and what the league looks like without her. But, that could be 15 years down the line. And in regards to this valuation that we're seeing, it's rising in large part because media deals, and there's an increase of interest in the league. And so with that in mind, you're going to have people who want to get in at this lower price. Obviously, $50 million a couple years ago, $250 million now. But the Valkyries, who are in year one, Sportico had them at $500 million, I believe, as the most valuable team in the WNBA. So you get the right owner, the right ownership group, and someone who really wants to put a lot of dollars into this thing and invest in a winning team. You can make this a profitable business in due time, so long as the league continues to, get the media deals right and negotiate a healthy CBA.
Yeah, I think that $500 million number was even surprising for me to see, because we just saw, the size sell off a piece of the Liberty. That was about a $450 million valuation, right, for that piece of the New York Liberty, who are the current WNBA champions. And this is a brand new team coming on $500 million and they're the most valuable team in the league. That was a little surprising to me. But I think, like, to your point, it shows that it's because of everything new and the specific owners and all of that. So that being said, I mean, we're really close to that the first $1 billion franchise.
Definitely. I think it'll be a race between the Valkyries and the Liberty. The Valkyries in particular they've just done a magnificent job on all facets of the business side, on the court, with the coaching staff, and of course the Liberty are the Liberty. They're based in New York. They're the reigning champion. They're a title contender this year. And I think that they're setting the precedent for teams who are coming behind them. If you want to be in the business of women's basketball, and this is why I also think that the WNBA is choosing to select bidders who are connected to NBA franchises just because they have the experience. And when you look at those two franchises, it's Joe Lacob and the Golden State Warriors, it's Joe Tsai and the Brooklyn Nets, and they run A-class organizations, and you would want that in women's basketball as well.
Randall Williams, thank you, man, for joining us, buddy. We appreciate it, my man. Up next, we talk with super agent Rich Paul about his latest project, Masterclass. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports, Bloomberg Radio around the world.
This is Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio.
Thanks for joining us on the Bloomberg Business of Sports. We explore the big money issues in the world of sports. I'm Michael Barr, along with Vanessa Perdomo. Damian Sassower is off this week. Our next guest doesn't need an introduction. He's Klutch Sports founder and CEO and sports super agent, Rich Paul. He is here now to take us through some of his latest projects. Rich, welcome back to the Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Thanks for having me.
Masterclass, I love this thing because if you looked at my life, I need lessons that are in Masterclass. In fact, everybody can use the lessons in Masterclass. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Masterclass is something that, obviously from a brand perspective is at the highest level as it pertains to finding out what's behind the walls of business and operations and things of that nature. And when I was asked to do it, from my perspective, there's never been somebody in sports representation that were asked to do it. And I wanted to make sure that I found a balance and not just talking about what happens in the business of sports, because everyone isn't in that business, but giving people what I would say would be a very relatable and understandable perspective on how to evolve, how to grow a business, how to evolve within the internal infrastructure at your job, and even, just the basic, simple things in life. And so I really enjoyed Masterclass. They had an unbelievable staff and team. We really pushed the details of it. Was something that we wanted to make sure we did not ignore. And I had a lot of fun doing it.
That's something I want to get more into because, like you mentioned, not everyone's in that business of sports. You're using these examples of negotiating these huge $1 million contracts in the NBA, but you use the language so that it can pertain to, across industries and things like that. Did you find that at all hard or challenging to use those lessons across everything, or do you really think these lessons of business just really apply to all industries?
Yeah, no, the difficulty in it was, again, just making sure that I'm able to connect with 10 people instead of 2, and out of those 10 people, how many of them are at the same level? How many of them are in the same position from a job perspective? How many of them are educated at the same level or understanding of what's in front of them? And so that was the hard part. But I think once you got past that, yes, it definitely all connects. Perspective is just so important. And I try to talk about this with all the young people that I encounter and older people that I encounter as well, because the timing of gaining a perspective actually is the beginning of your growth. And whether that's in business, whether that's in life, it's so important. You tend to find out what things have value and what things don't. You tend to have a better understanding of how your day should flow. I remember a friend of mine, her son was working at Target, and he was he wasn't a little upset about it. He just was like, it's a job, you know? Mm-hmm. He was like, I got a job. And I was explaining to him that, no, it's not just a job. You know, while you're there, the position you're in now, try to gain a perspective on what the next position is. And whatever that next position is, cultivate a relationship, take that person out to lunch or when you guys are on your lunch break, have the conversation of what they actually do. And then eventually you're going to evolve there. And then you take the next step once you get there. And eventually you start to understand, okay, who is the regional manager of all the stores and regionally? And then what happens in the corporate office and things like that. You have to have a vision of where you're at, but also where you have the ability to go. And then how do I navigate to get there? And so oftentimes people stop at, pretty much where their feet is. And, you have to have that vision to be able to take the next steps.
If I sound excited because these lessons that you're giving are lessons about life, I am. I mean, and there's one, out of the 9 main lessons of your class, there's number 1, and it's right off the page. Preparation. Win before you walk in. That's for young people and older people. Can you explain that?
Going into a locker room, an NBA locker room, what does that entail? Going into training camp, what does that entail? When you talk about preparation, our summers are what that preparation looks like. And we try to get people to understand your talent is going to take you, but so far. How do I, most kids dream of getting to the NBA. Most kids don't dream of getting to the NBA and then being successful in the NBA and having a consistent work habit in the NBA and understanding how to be a professional in everything I do while being in the NBA. There's so many different levels, it's like the 3 little pigs if you're building that house. And when you win, the winning aspect before you walk in the room is exactly that. Gaining a perspective on, okay, what and who am I? I'm an NBA basketball player. What does that entail? That entails me to be early. That entails me to leave late. That entails me to be engaged. That entails me to be appreciative. That entails me to have a routine. That entails me to be a great teammate. That I can go through 20 different things. Mm-hmm. And this is before you even get to the gym, having this understanding of this. Well, guess what? The hard part of it all is, these kids have been, number 1, taught wrong to begin with. None of them have been taught how to play. I can't say none. Very few has been taught how to play the game the right way. Some fall into playing the game the right way by circumstance, meaning I was not considered the best player on my team, so therefore I didn't have the ball in my hands. So because of that, I had to learn how to play without the ball. But really, once I got to college and to the NBA, me playing without the ball actually helps me because that's my role. But that didn't happen because you didn't want the ball. That happened because you wasn't good enough at that time to play with the ball. And that's just God for you, right? Mm-hmm. But for those that grew up playing with the ball all the time and then have to start playing without the ball, that's a culture shock. Mm-hmm. So now you're like, well, that guy was ranked number 1 in his class, and now he's not even in the NBA. It's because he's been playing the wrong way this whole time. And everybody around him was looking to benefit. Everybody around him wasn't identifying how he would be positioned in the NBA and was buying more into the stardom and the celebrity and the notoriety and what they can get from it. And so therefore, they're helping you fail without even seeing it.
Wow. What are those lessons that you've learned throughout, your career and through your different deals that you've done that have taught you those similar lessons of moving without the ball?
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand, I learned the most just being a part of the team and really barely hanging on. I was the last person to our circle. I did not have a role. People didn't necessarily look at me as someone of value, but that didn't matter to me because I knew my value within. I just needed an opportunity. And so I try to get people to understand, you don't necessarily start at 100 miles an hour, nor should you want to, because in that case, then you have to really understand how to control that wheel. And if I'm going that fast without the experience, I'm never going to understand how to control that wheel. And eventually, you know what happens there. I started to really pick up on my surroundings, the ecosystem around me, the different people, the different decision makers, those that I thought was trending towards being a decision maker. One of the best things I ever did as a young person, without even ever knowing I was going to be in the representation business, was cultivated relationships with those that wasn't in a decision-making position then, but with the understanding that they were trending towards being in a decision-making position later. And you know what? It happened. Everybody from a Chris Grant to a Masai Ujiri to a Wes Wilcox, even a guy like Brian Colangelo, who was a GM for a while, and Dad was owner of a team, just to name a few. In my business, those guys I always spoke to. I remember speaking to the person that parked the cars and speaking to all the security every time I came in and the ushers that take you to your seat. And despite who I was or connected to, I never looked to treat those people any different than I would want to be treated myself. Now, sometimes, you may have a little run-in or whatever, but even if that was the case, I always went back to that person and said, you know what? I apologize. I take responsibility. You were just doing your job. And so, again, that's just having an understanding and gaining a perspective. But those four names, those guys I named, those guys became decision makers at 4 basketball organizations when and I'm a very young person now in the business, and I was able to lean on them. They would pick up my phone call and give insight on several different things that were subjects at that time, and then to go a step further and do multiple deals with a lot of those guys. Right. So when you think about it, again, I embraced not being in that pole position to start the race, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Rich Paul, this is one of those conversations where we need 3 beers, a bowl of pretzels, and another hour. Because, man, I am so engrossed in this, and we've just run out of time. And I apologize, but my goodness, Rich Paul, thank you, sir, for educating us.
Thanks, Bloomberg. You guys are always great to me, and, I always enjoy these.
Oh.
Yeah, well, come back so we can talk about the rest of the class.
Yeah, because I need some more life lessons, please. Come back.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. Our thanks to Rich Paul for joining us. He is founder and CEO of Klutch Sports. And thank you for joining us. For Vanessa Perdomo, I'm Michael Barr. Tune in again next week for the latest on the stories moving big money in the world of sports. And make sure you subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and all your favorite podcast platforms. You're listening to the Bloomberg Business of Sports from Bloomberg Radio around the world.